Gintarė Skaistė, Finance Minister of Lithuania. Welcome.
Nice to see you.
It's good to see you. So before we start, I just wanted to check in. I mean, Lithuania is right on the front lines of everything that's going on in Ukraine. And I'd just like to know what is the feel in your country right now? It must be very stressful right at the moment.
I don't know, it depends, because everybody thinks that maybe there is some feeling of fear, but I wouldn't say that, because I'm just thinking that in the society there is definitely feeling of support for Ukrainians, and many Ukrainian refugees are coming and living in the houses of Lithuanian people. And at the same time there is a feeling of anger, I would say, anger because you cannot do anything to help them. And if we're talking about the sanctions and other measures that is taken by the other countries in the other parts of the world, there's always feeling that it's not enough. It's not enough done to stop everything what's happening there.
Yeah, it is a bit of a feeling of hopelessness and of a whole process that you really can't control. And this is, of course, one of the themes of this week that we've heard a lot about is this converging of various crises, kind of this layering of one thing on top of the other. So everybody was hit with the pandemic, and then you have, as you said, the sanctions, and there's an economic impact coming out of the war that's going on in Ukraine. So how is that hitting the Lithuanian economy?
When I'm talking about my experience as a Minister of Finance, I'm a Minister of Finance 1.5 years already, there's always feeling about what will happen next, because one crisis after another. Previously it was pandemic situation, and Lithuanian economy was quite resistant to this pandemic crisis. Afterwards it was a migrants crisis, because from Belarus there were coming migrants brought by the Lukashenko regime just to have a pressure to Lithuania. Afterwards we are having this energy crisis, the inflation rate, also the war in Ukraine. And I'm always thinking what could happen next. But we're living with what we do have, and I think Lithuanian economy showed some quite big resilience to all the shocks that could happen somewhere nearby. And I think mostly because we are prepared to that situation that we do have now. And especially if we're talking about the energy prices shock and energy shock, and about the sanctions when the European countries try to say goodbye to all energy goods from Russia and stop buying gas, oil and coal. I think Lithuania is one of the countries that are best prepared to do that, and we already decided not to buy gas from Russia anymore. And I think it is because we were preparing to the situation long ago.
Yeah, I want to get to this big announcement that you guys made about not taking any Russian gas. And before I get there, I did just, you had mentioned that you were prepared for a lot of these different shocks that you've been absorbing. And I'm wondering what, as finance minister, you did. What were some of the preparations? What did that look like?
I think it started much previous than this government. I think it's from 2010 we just decided to have the energy independence and to put a lot of efforts to that. And we decided to buy the LNG terminal, and afterwards all the connections to the gas with Poland and with the Nordic region as well. Also about the electricity sector, to have the interconnections with all the other countries. To have this independence and to have the liberty to buy or not to buy from Russia. And I think today we have the fruits of that, of this prudent policy in the energy sector.
So you were positioned, you had already been positioning your energy sector to have different sources of gas to come in, not just Russian gas. And I'm wondering, are you now also, given the EU's Fit for 55 and the entire move to move away from gas and fossil fuels in general, are you also taking a look at moving from gas? Is there kind of a longer range plan past the LNG?
Yes, definitely, and we have the strategy for longer term. It started in 2010, but it definitely will continue in upcoming years, and we have the plan to have energy from the renewables 93% of all the energy in 2030 already. So there is a big plan and big investment coming there, not only from the European funds, but also we are preparing sustainable finance strategy and try to collect all the possible financing that we could have, not only from the public sector, but also from the private sector, to have this renewables coming into force much more than it is now.
Mm-hmm. So very well positioned right now to get off of the Russian gas, but then also positioning yourself to get over into an energy transition in a more general sense.
We do have strategy for all the fields, not only gas, but also electricity. And I would say that there is quite a big plan for the renewables in upcoming years, with a lot of fundings, but also with regulation changes, because there is still quite difficult to implement some new projects when you're talking about renewables, wind energy or solar energy, but there's some restrictions and also some additional documentation that you have to prepare and everything. And we are just easing the way that how the renewables are coming to our lives. And there are quite big plans upcoming, and we have a strategy to have more than 19% of total energy from renewables in 2030. And it's quite a challenge, and I would say in 2030 Lithuania will be one of the frontier runners in this field.
That's great, and it's interesting, you've got this broad goal, but it sounds like you've really dug down into the details of how to implement it. Not so many people think about like the siting and the criteria and the paperwork. It's not the sexy part of the whole thing, but it's really important. I'm moving on from the energy for a second. I know inequality is, because income gap and inequality within countries is a big deal right now, and the UN report has recently cited that 75% of the global population live in countries where the income gap and inequality has widened. And I know that this is an issue that you as a finance minister inside of Lithuania have looked at a lot, and I'm wondering how you are thinking of addressing it and what you see the risks happening from such an inequality.
Maybe there is two tracks. One of them is a short-term, another one is a longer-term measures that we could have. Me being announced as the Minister of Finance, one of the priorities was lowering the income inequality, because I really think that is a problem in Lithuania, and we already made some strategic reforms that will help definitely in the numbers in this year already, and in the next year in the pensions increase, and also with lower income earners, also lowering their taxation and other decisions that were already made. But if we're talking about this short term and this energy crisis, the government presented the very big plan for this lowering inflation consequences and smoothing inflation consequences, and also energy independence strengthening. It is a plan from 2.2 billion euros. It's almost 4% of GDP of Lithuania, so it's quite a big amount. Half of it is dedicated to this transition of our economy, how to get energy independence, to use more renewables, to lower energy consumption in the households, renovation processes. And much of these projects are dedicated to the socially affected people that with a lower income. And the other part is 1 billion euros is dedicated to the higher energy prices, but what is really a problem for lower income people, and also increasing the revenues of lower income people especially. It is very targeted very targeted measures that are dedicated just to those people who are affected the most with inflation and energy prices rise.
Mm-hmm. So it's part of it is just making sure that you are providing help for the people who are most affected by the income inequality.
Yeah, the main goal, I think, is to have the understanding that this inflation rise will not hit the people that are really in the worst position, and that strategic reforms that we are doing will not be affected by this current crisis. So we have to put a bit more efforts in the same targeted groups to have the same result.
Excellent. Well, Minister Skaistė, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.